Welcome, guys. Today I'm going to clarify an important concept about the two methods that we have, invoke and its, right? What is the difference between the two, where we can invoke which method? Okay. So to start with, let me just create a simple function and let's just name it as sum, and it adds three variables. All right. So then it returns a plus b plus c. A very simple function, adding three variables and returning it. All right. So now I would ask a question over here. Now, if you have watched my previous videos also, I have covered cy.wrap. So that method I covered over here, if you would see. So in here, I just told like what is the functionality of wrap. So now we're going to cover what is invoke. Before invoking this method, you cannot just invoke this method on anything. You need a sci command. You need a DOM element, right, on which you have to invoke it. What is the method that returns me the DOM element is get, find, all those methods return me, probably a DOM element. But what is the way that I can convert any function into a DOM like element? So what did we do in here? Right. So I'm assuming guys you have watched my previous videos on this one. So we had an element and then we wrapped it. The reason we wrapped it was so that we could use our sci commands on it. Right. Otherwise it wasn't possible. Now similarly, that is again the second use case of wrap that I'm covering now. Since we have to cover invoke. So just to let you know, if I wrap my sum in here, so I have to wrap it as an object, right? Because it's a function, and invoke works on objects. Okay, so I have wrapped the function sum as an object. So now I can use sci commands on it. Now I can write dot invoke. It won't cause me an issue. But if you just write sum dot invoke, that guys it won't work. Right? You can try it. Okay, it won't work. So you wrap the method and enable it to use sci commands, and then you invoke it. And what we have to invoke? We have to invoke the same method sum. So it's basically it accepts the parameters. The first parameter is always the object you wish to invoke. So let's say I want to invoke some method, and I want to invoke in a way that it some method is accepting three parameters. So whatever parameters it is accepting, separated by comma, I have to pass those. Right. So that's it. So this will now return me the sum of 2 plus 4 plus 6. Okay, so let's just catch it dot then. Okay, let's name it as variable var sum, and I'm going to log it on the test runner itself. Okay, now I have wrapped the sum method, invoked it, and then whatever the result is there, I have caught it and I have reported it. Let's save it. Where is that? My test runner over here. Okay, which is, so it is in test 2. Yeah, so it has wrapped the element sum as a function object, invoked it, and then logged 12 246, right? So just for your information guys, you can also later do something like that. You can use the annotations like dot, so once the sum is there right over here, rather than doing this, I can also say dot should be dot lt is for less than, right? Less than what? Less than 10. Is it less than 10? No, so it is probably 12, so it is less than 20. Dot should be less than 10. Dot should be dot, let's also check greater than at least 10, which is there. So if you run and save it, so that is how you have converted a normal method to enable it to use sci commands, and then you have also annotated it with two annotations. Now if you will see the result, we have two assertions, sorry, not annotations guys, assertions. So we have two assertions, expected 12 to be below 20, which has passed, and expected 12 to be above 10, which has also passed. All right, that was one simple use case. But practically, what is the function of invoke, right? You will not do this, right? And most of the times, guys, we wouldn't be using this method. So invoke works the best with jQuery methods, right? So what are jQuery methods? I have actually gone. This website is quite good, guys. So it has all the cheat sheet of jQuery methods. Now you can invoke any of these methods using this invoke command. And why do we do that? Let's say let's take one of it, dimensions height, right? So let's just find the height of a object, right? So what I'm going to do is I have this my last name in here. Okay, let me comment this. Okay, let's just do over here. I'm going to get my last name and then I can invoke, and I'm going to invoke height method. Oh, it's already giving it, right? So it's also there in the IntelliSense suggestions. So I'm going to print the height. So after I have got the height, how can I catch it? Using then. That's our promise like Cypress command. Let's just say height. So that's my height, and I would just log sci.log on the test runner itself. HEIGST. Okay, save it, and let's see what it has. Alright, so it has passed, and see it has invoked height method on my last name, and log 24 is the height of the my last name element, right? So this is, guys, the real-time use case. You can also get the inner height, you can get the inner width. So this is a I would just leave this link in my description, guys. So this is really a cheat sheet for jQuery methods, and it's quite handy. You can use any of these methods. You can use inner property, and let's say if you want to find the attribute in any entry attribute, let's say we have a method .attr, right? So in here, like, you can just change it to attribute, and which attribute? Let's say you want class attribute, right? And then I won't change the variable name, let it be. Let's see what it has to print. It should get the class attribute and it should print it. So that's what I'm expecting. Yeah. So it has got the attribute class, and this is my class attribute mr sem2 form control for this last name. Okay. So since it will show the CSS selector, it won't really show the class attribute. Okay. So that is the job of invoke, guys. You can invoke any jQuery method, and you can also convert a function and pass it as an object and then invoke that method later using invoke command. Okay, let's see the usage of its. I'm just going to copy it and paste it over here and change it to its, and I'm going to say not, let's say its length. I just need the length of this thing, and then I'm going to say this is my length, right, and probably print it. So I have caught it, and I'm printing it. Okay, I didn't copy it. Come on. Okay, so now it has copied. Just save it and let's see. Yeah, so it has printed the length as one. So this is, guys, it's an invoke. So their nomenclature, basically the way they are invoked on. So you cannot invoke directly on sci command. So you cannot just write sci.invoke. That is also not possible, guys. Right? So you have to invoke it on an object, on a DOM object, and it's also gets invoked on DOM object. You cannot chain it directly with sci command, and it gets invoked on the properties. But this helps to invoke a method. That's the only difference between them. And yes, of course, since invoke invokes a method, so it will accept probably two or one parameter depending on the usage. Okay, and now let's also, I think that is all for this session. All right, guys, so let me also just cover one scenario, right, where we have used its. So these are some other important use cases of its. So especially in APIs, right? So you can use .its and get the response.body, right? Because this will actually contain the entire response of JSON. And if you need to get only the body, so you can use this method. right? So I have seen like it's is more used in API testing. So that's my personal experience, right? And invoke is again, guys, if you would go to the documentation, right, and you read this statement, it get a properties value on the previously yielded subject. But if you want to call a function on the previously yielded subject, use invoke. So invoke calls a function, it gets the property value. So that's the difference between the two. Right. Hope guys it has clarified it, right? And we'll catch up in next video, probably with another important concept. Thank you. Do like and subscribe.